Hello, everyone. This is Terra Vance from NeuroClastic, and I'm your CEO and co host today. We have with us Kate, Jude, and Emmanuel, and I'm going to turn it over to Kate to introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Kate Jones. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for NeuroClastic. And this is my colleague Jude.
Hi, my name is Jude. My pronouns are he, him, and I am the Chief Decolonizing Officer for NeuroClastic. Today, I want to introduce you to Emmanuel Sam. He will be speaking with us today. Emmanuel Sam is an international human rights attorney from Sierra Leone. His childhood was spent in devastating circumstances. At the age of 8, rebel factions came into his home and shot his brother. His uncle attempted to give him first aid, and for this, rebels shot and killed his uncle. His mother was forced to dance and sing as if to celebrate, knowing that if she didn't comply, she would also be killed. Witnessing these atrocities fueled Emmanuel's strong sense of justice and desire to ensure that anyone whose voice has been marginalized and oppressed has their agency and rights restored so they can speak their truth. He graduated valedictorian from the University of Sierra Leone in 2013 and then came to the United States to attend Northeastern University's law school, which has one of the most powerful human rights law programs in the world. When he graduated from Northeastern in 2016, he was selected to deliver the commencement speech, which can be viewed on YouTube. Today, he works on cases around the globe to ensure the human rights of the most marginalized are upheld. He's passionate about ensuring no one's voices are censored and people have access to self-advocacy. So, Emmanuel, after the chaos and tragedy you experienced in Sierra Leone, what did you expect would be different about the United States?
Oh, well, thank you very much for reading. I don't know. I don't even know how you got to know so much about me, but thank you very much for that. Um, like if you watch most of my videos, I have a lot of videos on YouTube. It's not just my commencement speech. You see me doing a lot of advocacy around the world. I have traveled to 59 countries in the world doing advocacy. So, when I came to the US, the first organization that I worked for was the IYF. I was working in Mexico, Guatemala, and Peru doing advocacy. Um, when I left Sierra Leone to the US, this US has something around it that when you come to the US, you think that everything that has to do with human rights is respected because US projects that, right? So especially third world countries, they just feel like human rights that are not respected. People don't really care about human rights. So when you come to a country like this, I thought every person's human right was supposed to be respected. On the contrary, when I came to the US and I started doing human rights work around North America and South America, I realized that there are a lot of human rights that are not people's human rights that are not respected, especially women. Women's human rights are not respected in the US. But I'm not going to go into that. I'll leave that for a whole. I have read a lot of acts and like even minimum wage in the US here. Women, a lot of people don't understand that women do not get the same salary as men in most jobs, but a lot of people don't know that. There is a whole act for that. If you go to my Facebook page, you read something about that I published about that. I see that offensive because we are humans. We should be the same. Treat everybody the same. Don't treat she's a woman and she's this or he's this or this transgender. You should treat them differently. I don't believe in that. I believe in human rights. Everybody's human rights should be respected. So it came to me as no surprise when I realized that there are organizations in the US whose human rights records are questionable.
Thank you so much for that. We definitely agree and understand. So how long after you arrived in the U.S. was it before you began working at the Judge Ronnenberg Center?
All right, that's a great question. So when I came to the US, I went to Northeastern University School of Law because I realized Northeastern was named the best practical law school in the country. So if Northeastern is the best practical law school in the US, and the US has the best law schools in the world. So my conclusion was that Northeastern is definitely the best human rights school in the whole world. So, and when I went to Northeastern, I was not really interested in going into the human services, but as fate could have it, I was there. And if you go to YouTube again, you see a video about me like advocating for people with the rights of people with disability. So, and it was Talila Lewis really that exposed me to this. Talila Lewis, great human rights advocate, great disability rights advocate. I had just left. I was at Rottenberg Institute of Human Rights and Humanitarian Law, where I spent about 6 months. I did some legal research work there. I work on the Nordic cities. I work on hate speech in Europe. Then I came back. When I came back, I met this model called disability rights. And I was like, oh, I think I'm interested in this because of my background. I had a nephew who has like autism. And because I am coming from Africa, the issue of autism is not really much big in Africa, and people are not really aware of it much. So this child was not treated very well. A lot of people thought he was stubborn, he was this, he was that. But this child went through a lot of problems, which a lot of people were not ready to support him, even in my own family, because they did not know about it. I did not know about it. My family did not know about it. So when I read the whole theme of the model itself, I realized it was something I needed to pursue. So I registered for the course. I had just come from Europe. So then I registered for this course, went to the class, and we started doing like Twitter advocating. If you go to my Twitter page, which I really don't use much, but if you go back 2016, 2017, you see that I was really so big in advocating for disability rights, which even earned me an award in Canada in 2017 for writing on disability issues. So I was working with Talila with like doing the course together with different people there. And I became very much interested. But my interest in disability issues could have been more cemented if I had worked for any organization that has, people with, intellectual and mental disabilities. So Judge Rotenberg, somebody recommended Judge Rotenberg, and I applied. I wanted to see how to really work with them because I wanted like first-hand information. I wanted to really work with people with mental and intellectual disabilities to work with them. That's how I got to Judge Rotenberg.
Thank you so much for letting us know about that. And it's for someone with such a deep and comprehensive advocacy background to have Judge Rottenberg Center be recommended to you and that be the first place that must have been jarring. What was your first impression of Judge Rottenberg Center?
Okay, like I said, there are so many things I might not discuss here. One, I am working on my book projects, which should be out by the end of the year. Secondly, Terra, you and I have discussed a lot. There are so many things that I'm working on which would prevent me from saying so many things here. But with time, I'll come back to this platform and discuss really in detail, discuss so many other things. I'm working on different things. I left Judge Rottenberg not because of tardiness, not because I didn't know how to do my work, not because of my educational background, not because of my cultural background, but because of my advocacy stance. Because I said, no, I am not going to support seeing people with intellectual and mental disability being tortured I am not going to be part of this. That is why I left Judge Rottenberg today. So yeah, it was when I started working, I had like an open mind. I wanted to maintain an open mind. As an advocate, you have to have an open mind. You don't have to compartmentalize your knowledge. So I tried very hard not to compartmentalize my knowledge. I wanted to have an open mind about Judge Rottenberg. I wanted to look at everything. But there are some insiders who knew my background, but sketchy background. Few of them started befriending me on Facebook, but I choose the friends that I will accept on Facebook, because if you go on Facebook, you see a lot of stuff about me. You see my advocacy work. I was there for about 6 years. The people in the top did not really know. Every time I told them I was traveling, either I was in the ECOWAS Court of Justice, doing cases there on pro bono basis, or taking human rights cases, or I was in the African human rights in Arusha, in Tanzania. They did not know much about that. Or if I was not there, I was in UK presenting at international conferences doing stuff, all on my Facebook, but they were not aware of it. So they really didn't know much about me. So I was able to know more about the organization. But let me tell you a story. So there is this lady that it's a funny story. This lady is called Lydia, who she's really high in, she's a lawyer, she's high in disability rights issues. Maybe some of you guys know her. And there was a time that one of the students left and went to Connecticut. So this lady was there, was helping this student not to come back. So we went there, and I was this student's case manager. So when we went there and Lydia saw me, Lydia was so surprised when she realized that I was her classmate at Northeastern University School of Law, in the same class doing disability rights advocacy. And she said, "Well, you work for Judge Rottenberg?" And I said, "Yes." She was very disappointed in me. And Talila Lewis, I know if she is watching this, she will tell you that she was very disappointed. We talked and she said, "I was very disappointed when I realized you were working for Judge Rottenberg." But again, as a lawyer and an advocate, I like to speak with first-hand information. That is why I challenge Judge Rottenberg. If they want, they can bring all their lawyers to sue me, because when I speak, I have evidence. When I speak, I have something to back it up. I don't just speak in vacuum. I represent people around the world in court, in international court. Forget about my local court, but in international court. When I came to the US, I went to the US school at Northeastern. I was the valedictorian again, not just in my country, but that's why I gave the commencement speech. So I am not a half-baked lawyer. I know what I'm doing. So when this whole thing came, Lydia was very surprised at me because I was working there. And I said, "You know what?" And I'll tell you guys here, Judge Rottenberg, every institution you find in the world, there are good sides to it and there are bad sides. Just like as humans. Even if they told you that Adolf Hitler was the worst person, there is somebody that will say, "But he had a very great smile," or he loved children, or he loved older people. So there are good things about Judge Rottenberg that I will talk about. There are bad things about Judge Rottenberg. I will not come here and say everything about Judge Rottenberg is the worst. No, I will not say that. But I will tell you, anything that has to do with the use of the contingent electric skin shock is a bad thing. That's it. So the experience was a little jarring. I'll say that.
I
it
can
was
only
funny.
imagine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I can hear that for you. It was immediately jarring because of your history with defending human rights. JRC isn't like a single building, is it? Can you tell us a bit more about the setup there?
JRC has different buildings. What do you mean? You mean the administrative? Because JRC is an institution, so it has a lot of residential homes, has a lot of offices, has different parts to it. So it's very difficult to really answer that question because I will not have a direct answer to that because there are a lot of buildings. If you're talking about the administrative buildings, I think maybe 2 buildings, but they have.
I guess for people that don't know it as an institution really well, I'm asking, can you paint a picture of what it's like as an organization, both like in a physical way, like when you arrive there, what kind of place do you arrive at?
It's not like a hospital, in other words, where there's just one central building. You were saying earlier, when we privately met, that it's expansive, that it's a really big place with lots of buildings and lots of different kinds of programs too, so that it's not just like everyone there is receiving the same kind of care and having the same experience.
Yeah. So that's why I told you that I will always say this, that Judge Rottenberg, I don't see it as an organization that is everything about it is negative. But because they don't really have people up there that think outside the box, that's why they have very bad media. Because they are doing some things that are great, that I'll tell you. But they have allowed the use of the contingent electric skin shock to overshadow whatever good things they do. Like I said, every institution has good and bad. But the use of the GED has overshadows everything that they are doing. So when you go to Judge Rotenberg, it's not all about the GED. You have school age, you have people there who you work with that are like the GED, you have the adult clients, so you have different needs. You know, it's like in the morning people come, it's like a school, like they have a school where, you know, everybody has their own responsibilities and rules. And so if I could buttress on that more, I worked with Judge Rotenberg for about 6 years, 5-something months, about 3 months for me to be 6 years. And I want to make this very clear for your viewership. I am not one of the angry people that they will terminate at a job, that will come and say things just because he wants to say it. These are issues that I picked up with Judge Rotenberg. I was in the back and I told clinicians that because of my human rights background, Judge Rotenberg does not really know much about me. All they know about me is that, oh, he's a staff that comes here and works and goes. But I have so much to me. They did not even know that I had a law firm, that I am the managing partner, that works. I have employees there that work for me. They did not know that. They just saw me like this guy. And those who want to look at my law firm, go to just the letter JSAM partners.com. That's my law firm. They did not know that. So they did not really know much about me at all. So I worked there for quite some time, and I was working in different departments. I was never working in the GED department. The moment they placed me there, I was working there, but I saw the GED, but I made sure that I did not have anything to do with the GED. I even forgot to even do my recertification. If they could check their records, they'll realize that I never recertified in years because I didn't like it. So when they brought me to the GED department, that is where everything went south, because they were not supposed to have made that mistake. I am not in, and I told them behind the scenes, I don't want to work with the GED. Could you please move me from this? My background does not work with the GED. I can work because I am doing ABA. I am interested in looking at the intersection between ABA and law, which Harvard is currently doing. I am doing it, as my PhD program is not just about corporate law, but it has some form of law and psychology that I have embedded in it. So that's the reason I went in for the master's. Although I am doing my PhD, I am doing both the master's and the PhD together to see the intersections. So I said, I don't want to be part of the jury. And they were confused. Why? Because I'm a human rights lawyer. If anybody were to come here and say, hey, why are you working in the GED department? Why are you shocking people? I don't want to be part of this. You know, again, when you have an institution where they are not allowing the philosopher kings to rule, but people whose appetitive part is so bigger than the philosopher kings. Plato said, until you allow the philosopher kings to rule, the state will always suffer. So even an institution, if you don't have the philosopher kings, people who are highly educated, who are highly exposed, how many people are really there in that institution at the top that have listed out of Massachusetts? How many countries have they traveled? How exposed are they? Some of these are some of the questions. But when you come as from another country, even when you have all the education, you are smarter more than 98 or 99% of them, they'll teach you that like you are from another country. Even with all my degrees that I brought and dropped them on the table, you're still looking at them like that. How an institution can treat someone like me like that? It's funny. So when I said, no, I don't want to work with this thing, and they kept pushing for me to work with it. So I left Judge Rottenberg, and I just want to make this very clear that when I left, a lot of people thought I was going to sue Judge Rottenberg, and I have a great case to make. I have so much to come after them for, so much. Just little thing I'll hold them for. I know all those where to touch, but if I did that, it will destroy the purpose, my purpose of living, which means I wanted to advocate for those people who sometimes do not have much to say to advocate for themselves. So if I were to sue and they'll say, oh, well, he wants to get money off of us, but I left Judge Rottenberg and I got 2 jobs. My regular job, where I do more of legal research in my field, I work there maybe once. I go to my office once or twice. Whereas Judge Rottenberg was just crazy. And I do consulting for another organization, which I have. So now I have time for myself. I do more of my work. I can travel and do more of my advocacy work. So nobody should take it that, oh, this is a guy that is aggrieved. No, I am not. I am just worried that there are people there who need to be saved. That's what I am worried about. That means their rights should be respected. That's all I'm asking for. I left them not because I was not a good staff or because of anything. I left there purposely because I criticized and I was going hard at the GED. Instead of them coming to me, a serious organization will come to you and say, what, can we sit and talk? They sent me this African guy who came, you know, who he is being used seriously. Nobody really respects him. Well, blah, 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 blah. And I explained the background to everything. You know, but, you know, some people, when they come, and I'm an African too. So when they come, you know, if you come to this country and you do not develop yourself, you don't have more options. Some people do not have options, so they have to stick with Judge Rottenberg. But I have so much options. I have so much degrees in my hands. So I can leave today and work any other place. But some people do not have. So people like that, they don't have options. And when he told me everything, he said, we have consulted our lawyers. And I looked at him. I was like, your lawyers? Yeah. If you had good lawyers, they would have advised you, hey, don't touch this guy because he'll blow up. I'm not one of the half-baked. I'm educated more than 99.9% of the people there. I'll say that. And I have evidence. If they want, they can challenge that. Over 99.9% of them. So if you tell me lawyers are coming after me, am I new to lawyers? That's why I said in the conference that I am an adversarial lawyer. I love when I challenge myself. This is what I do. So it's funny how everything played out. I am not worried about the institution. I don't hate the institution. I really like the institution. I just want the institution to do more. They can be a better institution without the GED. That's it.
Thank you for sharing that. Definitely understand that this gives you the opportunity to come with experience, and that they can't attack you like they have other people and saying that you don't know what you're talking about when you've been there for 6 years, and that you're not just doing this for clout, you're doing this because you see the humanity in us all and understand that it needs to be respected on all levels. At NeuroClastic and the autistic and broader disability community have been fighting against the use of electroshock punishment at JRC. If you're able to, can you tell us about how it made you feel the first time you saw it being used? It looks like we lost Emmanuel for a second. We can wait and see. Oh, there we go.
You guys lost me, right?
Yeah, for just a couple of seconds.
Okay. So can you ask your question again?
I sure can. If you're able to, can you tell us about how it made you feel the first time you saw electroshock punishment being used at JRC?
You should know that. I don't even need to say that, because like I said, I have a background of a nephew who was not treated very well by my own family, because we are oblivious of the fact that he had autism. So now when I sit and think about how he was treated, he's no more, but how he was treated, I have committed my life and limb to this thing. That is, I have to be there. And when I saw, when I worked in the classroom for 2 years, like I said in the conference, for 2 years, and I tried very hard to take myself off this whole thing, but it was very difficult for me to maintain that. And because it was very difficult for me to maintain that, I had issues with it. That's when I started talking against it. And I went to 2 clinicians, which, so funny, as if you are a BCBA, you have ethical codes. They were supposed to have read those ethical codes, which I read, which I can quote in verbatim what those codes stand for. But I don't think the clinicians knew that, because that's why they went to the organization and told them, oh, this guy is a bad guy, he's against GED. What's wrong with that? So my First Amendment right is not important at all. Well, I'm an American, so I was not born here, but I'm naturalized, so I have the right to say I don't like it. But it's just crazy that clinicians went there and even jeopardized their license for an organization that would just dump them anytime they want to. Because to me, the use of the GED, I experienced it, I saw it. It's a punishment procedure. And when you read Applied Behavioral Analysis, I have 2 weeks to complete my course and have a Master of Science in Applied Behavioral Analysis. I have 2 weeks to have my master's from today. So I am done with the course. I know everything about it. Nobody can lie to me. I'm not new to it. And I looked at everything, and it's clearly written there that punishment procedures should not last too long. Should just be like a short thing. Then you look for alternative, behaviors or alternative solutions. Alternative solutions to the problem behavior. But if you take punishment procedure and you make it as a permanent thing, then there is a problem. Because if, for example, if I am shocked once because I left my seat, and after 5 minutes I leave my seat again, I am shocked. Because I am not taught sign language. I can't sign. And I can't even hear what you are telling me. You shocked me because You think I understand your language when I cannot speak your language? Then I repeat the same thing over and again. I keep doing the same thing and you keep shocking me. I take exceptions to that. That's when I started being say, no. At first, I had an open mind to see how it really works. Thankfully, I was now in the ABA program, which was well into it. and I am not just the basic, the least grade that I have is a B+. Check with Simmons. All my grades are A's. So you don't come back and tell me, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. All my grades are A. Simmons has one of the most rigorous ABA programs. All my grades from I started 2 years, all are A's, 1 B+. So don't come to me and tell me he doesn't know what he's talking about. I am very thorough in everything that I do. When I say I want to read law, I go there to do everything that I do. If I say I want to do ABA, I want to do everything that I do.
So when you saw, we hear JRC all the time saying that the GED is only used for like life-threatening, self-injurious behavior, somebody, about to give themselves a concussion or do something that threatens their life, run into traffic, or they are gouging out their eyes, or they're about to hurt or kill someone else. That is when they use the GED. Is that true? They only use it in those life-threatening situations?
It's a lie. I said that in the conference, and I know when I say it's a lie, if Judge Rottenberg wants, they can send me a letter, maybe a letter before action, and warn me. I'll love that, and I'll reply to them. And I'll reply to them with evidence. I am not. When I started the fight, I was ready, and I knew I was going to be well fortified before starting the fight, because I knew where the fight was going to lead me. It's the GD is very sacred at Judge Rotenberg. You don't touch it. When you touch it, you are leaving. So I knew I was going to leave. I had already applied. I already had my legal research job. I think I did the interview. Then I started fighting very hard now for this. So I left Judge Rotenberg. A week, I started working my new job. I knew it was going to end up like that. I knew that. So it did not come to me as a surprise. But if anybody told you it's used for just that, I got you all those, no, it's not. And I have evidence to support that. If they don't believe, they can refute this. Then I'll send them my evidence. I'm not going to even send it to court, but I'll send them to them. I'll take a picture of my evidence and send it to them that I have to tell them that no, it's not. I said that in the conference. This is not it's not hidden. The ABAI is going to be there Thursday and Friday, I think, whatever. They're going to be there this week, right? But
yes,
yeah, whatever. I'm not going to say much about that, but whatever.
So at ABAI, you had said that, sometimes they shock for the most minor things up to 15 times in an hour. Sometimes, for standing up or, simple things. And you were just saying earlier, they're shocking non-speakers who they haven't given robust communication to. So there's no way to even know that they have the language to understand why they're being shocked, because they're not given the sign language. They're not given AAC to be able to have reciprocal communication. So they can't even prove that people know why they're being shocked, and they're being shocked. And what you're saying is the same thing that everyone who's whistleblown, everyone who has been, even the clients who were at JRC have said the same thing, that they're shocking for minor things. They call them precursor or antecedent behaviors. So one day a person self-injured, and before they did, they were flapping their arms. So now, every time a person flaps their arms, they say, well, you self-injured after you flap, so now when you flap, we're going to shock you. And so that's that precursor antecedent behavior that we keep seeing things like someone needs to use the bathroom, but if they get up to go without asking first and being given permission. Even if they don't have language to ask, they get shocked. If they use the bathroom on themselves because they couldn't go to the bathroom, they get shocked for inappropriate use of inappropriate toileting or whatever they call it. So they've given people these lose-lose situations, and you said that the same thing everyone else has said, shocking people because they just don't like them or whatever. Just, it happens all the time. Do they have time to document? Is there enough staff there that's highly trained? Do they have time to document every single time they shock and why they shock, or do they just not have time for that kind of thorough record keeping and accountability?
Well, like I said, there are things that are very sensitive that I will not discuss here, but I'll definitely come in the future to discuss here. Some things I will just discuss on the surface of it.
Right.
All right. We'll find another time when I'll come, when I know the right time is now, then I'll come back and discuss. Maybe I'll go in detail. Maybe I'll be more detailed than you people. I know more. I have been in this institution. I know. They should know that I know so much. And I'm a curious person. All right, let me give you a little analysis of applied behavioral analysis with the issue of the precursor behaviors. All right. We have a precursor FA, which is a functional analysis, which you want to know the function of the behavior. We have FBA, which is the umbrella thing. You want to know the function, what is really maintaining this behavior. And if FBA is not able to really tell you much about the behavior, which most times the descriptive assessment is not really going to really tell you much. You use checklists, you use rating scales, things like that, will not tell you much about the behavior. Okay, now if you come to know much about this behavior, you might have to do a functional analysis where you have to test all those things. You have to test whether it's maintained by attention, it's maintained by automatic reinforcements, it's maintained by access to tangible. You have the play the thing where you test everything. The questions that they should be asking themselves: are we doing much FAs to know the function of these behaviors before we punish them? This is what I wanted. I wanted the clinicians to argue me on this. But again, if you are not able, you are not exposed enough to argue, to really get academic discourse, you run straight to the admin and snitch to them and tell them, oh, this person is bad, this person is. It's so funny. I see you like I don't want to say, I don't want to curse here, but I see you funny for you to do that. But those were you start from that. Are FBAs conducted properly? Okay, even when FBAs are conducted, they are so much flooded because so many issues go wrong. Okay, if FBAs are not conducted, can we go to the more rigorous one, which is the FA? Are they conducted for you to know whether these behaviors that they call precursor behaviors are really precursors to the main behavior? Are they? Does FA really tell you that? Have you done that? Do you have the staffing? Do you have everything it takes for you to do FAs? Do you have that? Ask yourself. This is why the organization has so much bad people, PR, because they don't listen to the philosopher kings to tell them what to do. If you wanted to do this for you to give real evidence for people to know, go do FBAs. Okay, you do FBAs and you are not convinced, go to FAs. Do FAs. So if you go to court or you go to somewhere, if you talk to people that are ABA certified, they'll tell you, hey, listen, did you do real FBAs? Okay, yeah, I did FBAs, but FBAs are flooded. Did you do FAs? Yes. But how many times did you do FAs? Because it might be maintained by this today, by automatic reinforcement, but after 2, 3, 4, 5 months, it's never maintained by that. It's maintained by social attention now. It's no more automatic reinforcement. Did you redo that? So if you as a BCBA, you cannot argue like that. You run straight there and try to snitch that, blah, 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 blah. I look at you like, come on. I talk in court. That's what I get. That's my living. So I like when I discuss with you, you argue with me. So that's why I can't wait for, let me have like, I want them to put whoever they have that is a doctor, that put them on like a panel discussion. Let's have a discussion. Now that I'm done with my calls, I have to.
I want them to come here and discuss with our audience. I want ABAI. I know they're listening. I mean, it's very clear that they're paying attention to us because they make passive aggressive comments about us in their speeches and publications. And then after the ABAI panel where you spoke and called JRC out, they said that we were histrionic and we were using alternative facts to talk about JRC, as if we are exaggerating that they're using something. Okay, so let's talk about real fast. A taser gives a current that goes through your whole body and it temporarily stuns a person. That's the point of them. They have high voltage. But a cattle prod is meant for like 1,000-pound bull, right? That it only causes the animal extreme pain. So when you shock an animal, 1,000-pound bull, it's to make it move, because cows sometimes like they don't herd the way that they need to herd, and so it's to like give them a push to make them go forward. And in a lot of places those are outlawed as animal cruelty, but those max out at 18 milliamps. The GED is not like a taser. It doesn't go through the whole body to stop someone from being able to do what they're doing. It simply just causes them extreme pain in the area where the shock happens. And, you know, not just that one specific spot, but it radiates in the general area. And so they, like I said, a cattle prod for like 1,000-pound bull maxes out at 18 milliamps. These can go up to 90 milliamps, where 100 is considered fatal. And so we are saying this is cruelty for anyone, for animals. There's no cattle prod that powerful because it's already cruel to use the 18. And so, oh, hold on. We got Emmanuel coming back in. Okay, there you are. So we know that we're saying this is cruel, period, no matter what you do. So I'm just, to fill in the audience, we, ABAI, the American Behavior, no, the Association for Behavior Analysis International, had this annual conference. This week, they are going to be looking at Judge Rotenberg Center. They have a panel of 4 people. One of those people works under one of the board members from Judge Rotenberg Center. So he founded at Western Michigan University the Autism Center, and she is the director of it. So essentially, I'm guessing he's her boss, or, you know, at least she's under something that he founded. How objective can she be? They're colleagues. She's defended him and shock torture. We have news reports. We put them on NeuroClastic. So they're not objective. We don't trust what they're saying. And, you know, when you say JRC lies, we all know this. Everyone knows this. Judge Rottenberg Center sent us a cease and desist that said they have never harmed a client. Where we've all seen the videos. We know they have, right? They've paid settlements to people before for the torture that they've caused. So, we lost him again. His internet goes out sometimes. Okay, Kate, I'll turn it over to you now. You had a question.
Yeah, Emmanuel, I was going to ask you about the staff at JRC. We see a lot of articles claiming that almost everyone working there is in direct care, working most with clients. Everyone who is working most with clients is an immigrant. Is that true in your experience?
I'll plead the fifth for that.
Okay, so that's fair. That's what we see.
So we'll
in a
definitely
lot of-
come back and discuss those things in detail. I like to be detailed about everything that you see me. I'm very detailed about any question you ask.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to touch on sensitive issues for what I'm pursuing.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, so just to fill the audience in, let me fix something real fast here. So just to fill the audience in, we see a lot of articles that have been published. And you can see, if you look at Lydia Brown's website, if somebody can put the link to that in the comments, I'll post it up for Lydia Brown's repository on Judge Rotenberg. But we see that a lot of the people who work there, not the executives at the top, not the supervising employees, but the other employees who work with direct staff, directly with clients most of the time, are immigrants, which we've seen enough from them to feel like they're going to have an agenda for everything they do. And I feel that this is another way that they exploit people. I feel that they exploit their employees. And Mel Baggs, who is no longer with us, but was this amazing advocate, wrote about the employees there and that it's not their fault, right? They're victims as well, because they're being brought in to this situation without much choice and just being thrown into this without much training. And we know that that is just it's unfortunate. It's a continuation of the problems that they have. And also, we've seen other reporters say that pretty much every person in supervising and executive positions there, and you can look at their board online on their website, is a white person who's not an immigrant. And so that dynamic there lets you know enough. Okay, here we go. Put that, sorry, somebody already had. I'll put that up. But yeah, that dynamic lets you know enough to see that there are just these systemic problems that go beyond just simply the GED. Can you tell us, Emmanuel, how do people feel about having to, in your experience, I know you probably didn't interview every single person, but do people want to use the GED? Is this something that they get a choice about, that they want to do this, or is it just kind of foisted upon them and they have no choice?
That is something I would like to plead the fifth on for again. I'll come to that in the future, because I like to back everything I say with evidence. Because if somebody's coming after me, I should be able to back it up with evidence. Because if they really want to expose themselves, it's like coming after me. Oh my God, I'll come out so bad. So many things will come out. It's better with them if they can just stay away from it. Because in the first place, there's too much lawsuits. Things that we should be talking about again is this: that Judge Rottenberg is very notorious for suing people. I'm a lawyer. We're lawyers. We can see even the most stupid case that you bring to me. That's where I live. That's my live. I went to school to live on that. So even if you bring the most crappy case to me, because you think you get these monies and that you should be using that to buy good water for the kids, buy food, great, make them lives very better, make the lives of the staff there better instead of doing crazy hours, make them get better life, like pay them more. Maybe that would be better than paying thousands of dollars to lawyers for them to pursue people, for them to retract statements or retract stuff on. It's a little funny. I think this is very key, that as an institution, I don't hate them. I really love them. I want them to succeed. I want to see them and say, I worked with this institution once. They have changed so much over the years. I want to see them succeed. I don't see them as enemies. I don't see them that everything that they do is wrong. I don't. There are people that I have seen, they save their lives. There are people that have impacted their lives. So I'll tell you, I was part of that. So I'm not going to come and tell you everything about them is so worse. No. But there are things that they are doing that they should just improve on. Instead of going after people, every publication that people do, you have to go there and tell them to retract it. Well, my book is coming out. You should be ready to tell me that I have to retract it. Because it's coming out. It's coming very heavy. You know, when that book comes, it's going to be a real book. I had already done writing my book. But when this whole thing, I became part of the GED now for 2 years, I said, oh, I think I need some chapters about the GED. So it's coming out within the next 4 or 5 months. But yeah, with time, we'll come and discuss really about the staffing situation, which I will really be detailed about. But like you know, Terra, there is so many things that I'm working on. And it's all about people with, one thing I'll make clear here, people with autism are very capable to advocate for themselves. They don't even need anybody to come and advocate for them. We just join them in their community and say, these are our sisters and brothers who will join you in your fight. But nobody should say, well, I am the be-all and the end-all to advocate for people. No, we don't advocate for people with autism or people with mental or intellectual disabilities. They are well versed in these things. They can advocate themselves. They have all the tools to advocate for themselves. Some of us are just like people who are complimenting. Like if you see somebody doing something, doing his garden, you say, well, can I help you? That's it. So I'm not going to come here and tell you I am this, I can. No, I'm just helping for us to, what I know, how to preach, how to talk about issues that I'm aware of that I think are not right. I'll talk about them. And I'm a human rights activist. That is what I was at age 14 when I started doing advocacy. So I have been doing it all throughout my life. There is no reason for me to stop now, which was one of the biggest mistakes that the institution did not know. They did not know I was a zealot for human rights issues. They did not know I was a zealot for that. Maybe when I left, they started checking my background out to know who really this guy was. He was with us, working with us. We didn't really know about him. Next time, they have to do some more research on people. You don't just see immigrants coming. You see they have accent, like I have my accent, my thick African accent, and you say, oh, they are stupid. Oh, they don't know nothing. That's how people take people here, right? You know, the moment they hear you speak accent, they don't even know what you have in you. They don't know. They can't explore. They don't go into explore for you to see how best you could proffer solutions, because there are easy fixes in that place. Easy, very easy. But you know, the institution is very tight-lipped, very tight like that. You know, everybody's afraid to talk, because if you talk, you're gonna be fired tomorrow. I can't work in a space like that. So for me, I knew I was gonna talk. I can't at all. I am a social critic. I provoke the follies and valleys of society in order to bring change. I cannot stop that. At age 13, I started doing that. I've traveled around the world. There's no continent that I've not been. Well, maybe Antarctica that I've never been, but all other continents I've been. And I've done advocacy. So I'm not going to stop now. This is just the beginning. I'm coming. I'm not going to stop.
I feel like they probably feel very much about you the way they feel about us. I think when they sent us that, it's no secret, we are not a wealthy, or we're not the typical nonprofit. We're not the typical corporate structure. We are poor activists. A lot of us are poor in our leadership, even. A lot of us are poor to the level of food insecurity, right? And we have no corporate headquarters. We have no material assets except for a laptop. That is all we own as an org, right? We spend, except for a little bit of tech money for our website and some, like this streaming service we're using and things like that, we spend all of our money just paying autistic people to create content, to self-advocate, to show the world what they're thinking and who they are. That's all we spend our money on, right? They came to us, an org that is created to represent autistic voices, to silence autistic voices. And that is really just symbolically horrifying. I think they believed when they sent that cease and desist that it was going to scare us because we don't have the money to defend ourselves against them. But it didn't matter because we, just like you, we are system disruptors. That's what you're saying. You agitate, you provoke because you want them to argue. You want them to justify what they are doing. And it's the same for us. We want them to, like, yes, go ahead. If you have to sue us, do it. Because we want that discovery. We want in your files. We want to put you on the stand and make you accountable to our community, because that's our people. We love them. We care about them. We want them to stand in front of our community and to tell them where they're getting their justification to do this. Because we already have better ways, right? We have lots of better ways. They advocate against better ways and in support of torture, which, you don't have to say that word. I'll say the word. I'll say the word 1,000 million times. It's torture and it's wrong. So yeah, we have one question from the audience. Whose input are they taking when they decide who needs what? Is it just their own? Are they asking the autistic community? Are they respecting disability advocates? Or are they just relying on their own internal, they're basically their personal beliefs about what acceptable treatment is?
That question is for me.
Yeah.
I think that's more theoretical than practical. So I can't tell because like
yeah,
I
you
said,
can only say what you're a lawyer. You can only say what you have evidence for. I understand.
Yeah. So I want to say what I can back, but with that, it's more theoretical than practical. So it's more theory. Everybody believes in their own theories. So I don't want to say they had. If they had space for advocates like me, I don't think we should be here today, right? We should. I don't think you guys should be here today, because they could have allowed you guys to go there and question some of the things that you don't agree with them with. This is how you make like an open space. Make your office accessible. Get open mind as an institution. Let me give you an example. I have my foundation, which is called the McPherson Foundation. When I started the foundation, and when we had the Truth and Reconciliations Commissions in our country, because I was one of the children's leaders by then, they called me to give my own opinion about the causes of the war in my country. And I told them to their faces that this, and this, and this happened. They couldn't believe it. As young as I was, little as I was, I told leaders to their faces. So I found my organization, and a lot of people had like criticisms about some aspects of the organization. I brought them on board. They found solutions to some of the problems that we are facing. And those solutions were very easy to fix. And I was able to fix them. When I created my law firm, I know that the Legal Practitioners Act of 2002, Section 5, subsection 2 says you should not advertise. I never advertise my law firm. But because of the work that we do, people come there to work with us. I don't need to advertise. So it's just pieces of things that you need to fix together, and you can get it right. If they could allow you guys to talk to them, advocates like me, to come and talk to them and critique some of the issues, we won't be here, because we'll be there and say, okay, we walked away from JRC. We are satisfied. We are satisfied. But the moment I became critical, it said, trouble is on. There's trouble on the horizon. Why do you have to be so threatened by somebody that is questioning, somebody that is part of the institution? I am part of the institution, so I'm in a better position to question the issues, especially because of my ABA background now. Because I was reading I was reading the Master of Science in Applied Behavioral Analysis, and I have 2 weeks to be done with that, like I have always said. So I was in this thing, and I am still in this thing, and because of that, I question it. If in one of my classes, get this, it was in one of my classes with one of the clinicians, and the other clinician from nowhere started asking questions, and she was so, because maybe she's so power tossed, she wants to overthrow maybe the executive director, maybe that's what she wants to do, because you can't be so, you as a clinician, you should be critical. We have what they call in ABA philosophic doubt. You can't create this thing and you doubt it, you question it and see and go back and test it to really be sure. But where is the philosophy doubt in this? If you can't allow any form of criticism around you, it's a big no-no. Oh, you can't form. That's why they have bad PR. They could have allowed me to voice out what I felt, but they thought, with them, they don't really go, they don't do like data mining. When you hire a staff, certain caliber of staff, when I went there, I gave them just 1 master's, because I know this is not an institution I can even give them all my masters. Just give them 1 master's and I think 2 bachelor's degrees. I gave them that. The rest, I just kept it to myself. From there, that I am not talking in vacuums. I am well informed. Just from the degrees that you had with you could have said 2 first classes, another master's as a valedictorian. At least you could have said, oh, well, this one that came might be a little different from those people who do not even have high school degrees or just have high school degrees. So can we treat him differently and listen to him? So when I started raising the issues, nobody wanted to listen. They were so worried. They were so terrified that, oh, we have to get rid of him quickly. With them, they did not know my background, that I am more of an advocate. Getting rid of me is like creating more problems for yourself, because I'm out there wallowing. I am on the what lawyers will call, you are on the frolic of your own. I am now on the frolic of my own. So I can say, so if they could allow that space, like you said, Terra, if they could allow that space, we couldn't be here. Because you guys could go there and ask them questions and they will answer them. And maybe to your satisfaction, you say, okay, well, we are satisfied. Maybe I could have asked those questions and I could have satisfied. Somebody could have convinced me. Let me tell you, I went back and forth with these clinicians, 2 of them against me, 1. And they didn't like it. Because I was able to convince them more than how they were able to convince me in less than 20 minutes. They have their BCB. I don't have my BCB. But I was able to use what we all read in less than 20 minutes to convince them. They did not tell the institution that they themselves do not even believe in it much from all what we discussed. I have evidence for that. They did not tell the institution that they themselves do not really believe much in the GED. But they said that is the only solution. I said, no, but there are other solutions. And I showed them the solutions.
And it's interesting because you mentioned all they have to do is invite in autistic professionals, autistic community advocates. And we at NeuroClastic, Terra and I had a meeting lined up with the Director of Clinical Services, and he cancelled that meeting. And then shortly after, we were served with a cease and desist. So we have used every means possible to us to engage. But just like you were shut down, we have been shut down. And so we are left with our only means to communicate and to advocate for our community is this now. And so we're here.
You have a voice.
Yeah.
You have a voice. Use your voice. Use your voices. You have a voice. Don't allow anybody to muzzle your voice. I was in UK in was it in May? I think in May. I went there to advocate on behalf of Julian Assange. I know if you tell anybody in America, oh, you are advocating for Julian Assange, they will say, oh, who is this? Who is this? Oh, Julian Assange is an enemy of the US. No. To me, it's not. As long as his rights are being muzzled, I was in the UK. I went to Germany to advocate for Julian Assange. Last year, when I was nominated for me to read an award that I'm looking, the honorary award for my human rights advocacy, they did a whole book about me, about my human rights advocacy. Before I went there, I went straight to Germany. And I started there. Then I went to UK to advocate, to be part of the parade for Julian Assange. It's all about listening. For me, in my country, my government, we go back and forth. We go back and forth. If you do something I don't like, I critique it. If you go back to my Facebook or some of my publications, or you go to my LinkedIn and read some of my publications, in 2014, I was on the stage in New York, NYU. If you go to my Facebook, you go to my background photo, you see the former UK Prime Minister was on the stage. Greta Mitchell was on the stage, who is the former widow of Nelson Mandela. Aisha Sise of CNN International was there. The guy that made Angry, all of them, all kinds of world leaders were there. And I told them, if you don't give us rights as humans to have access to education, we would advocate as youth, we would advocate against you world leaders every other day. People will look, oh, he's saying that. Yes, I'm saying it. Because I'm not afraid to say it. When I went to the UK to go after corporate abuses, everything I said on the stage, people were like looking themselves, because I have nothing to be afraid of. Some people are so robotic in their advocacy. They only advocate for something that is in their interest. Something that is not in their interest, oh, they don't care about it. I don't work like that. I advocate for everything. I advocate for even people whose human rights are being violated in Africa by these corporate abuse organizations. I am a big advocate against corporations around the world because human rights are being violated. And I have given a lot of lectures on that. So I am not just my advocacy looks at everything, and I'm not afraid to talk to anybody to tell you what I feel. And that is what I want you guys to do. Speak in clear voices. Believe in what you believe in. Don't allow anybody to intimidate you. Don't say things that you cannot back up. Say things that are realistic. As long as you do that, you are saved. You are in a better space. Because if anybody were to come after you, you know you have great evidence. But advocate for anything that you think you can advocate for. The disability community, they have their voices. They can advocate for themselves. All we need to do is to help them in their endeavors. That's it. They can do it all by themselves, but we need to help them in their endeavors. And people like me, from 2016 to now, have had a lot of experiences. And for now, I'm very much interested in disability advocacy. I'm even working on trying to establish an organization back in my country, because there is so much human rights violations when it comes to people with mental and health and intellectual disabilities. People are not even aware of it in Africa. Much awareness is not done there.
Well, we want to offer to support you in that. We have experts all over the world, and including not in Sierra Leone, but in some countries in Africa. And I can imagine that just from hearing from them that maybe circumstances are similar, and just that the general population has no idea even what it means to be autistic or how to support autistic people. And recently, and we heard at ABAI that people...
The Kenyan lady, right?
Yes.
Yep.
People are starting to believe that, and we don't know if it's true or not, that they're trying to implement these aversive shock procedures outside the U.S. This is something that we're looking into to see, and we invite the world, if you find information about that, please send it to us, because we're looking into that. We want to make everything transparent. Like Emmanuel said, we have to have the conversations. We don't have to agree with anyone, but you cannot have people with unchecked, unadulterated power making all the decisions and shutting out everyone else. We don't all have to agree, but we all have to weigh in. And they're not letting that happen. And like Kate said, we tried to meet with the director of clinical services. We didn't think that we were going to change his mind, but we wanted him to be accountable to us. We wanted him to hear our voices. We wanted him to hear what our community is saying. Now, I will say that I have had conversations with top tier decision makers. I can't say who right now for various reasons. But they will evade until you get to a point where you continue to press, ask questions, and then they'll stop you and say, we just have different worldviews, and neither of us are going to change our minds, so I'm just going to end this conversation. That's how they do it every single time. It's like they've memorized that they hit a wall where they realize if they can't convince you that shock torture is okay, they're just going to say, well, we have different philosophies and we're not going to change each other's minds. That's fine in a free country, but you cannot have more power than 99% of people to make these decisions and go unchecked. That's not okay. And that's what we are advocating against. We know that there are parents out there who've been convinced that this is the only way because they've tried 2 or 3 other things. That's not everything that's out there. They weren't successful in other programs. Hey, guess what? We have tons of children in our collective. There are tons of parents whose children have been kicked out of 1 million programs. We already know. We already know what happens when your child gets kicked out of several programs and you're in that place. And let me say that some of the people on the GED really do have disabilities that dramatically impact their lives, and they are suffering a lot. And they really have tried. They've been at places before Judge Rotenberg Center where they've been sedated. That we call that chemical restraint, when you use medications to keep someone basically a zombie, right? They've been sedated with chemical restraints all day, and they have been mechanically restrained, strapped to beds, cuffed all day. And Judge Rotenberg Center, I will give them this. They are trying to free people from that. That is not terrible. That's noble, right? We also want to free people from that. This is not how we do that. There are other ways that are better, more humane. This is barbaric. This is not acceptable. And also the myth that they tell everyone. Let me pause myself for 1 second. Emmanuel, it's after 2. We are going to stay live for a few minutes, Jude and Kate and myself. But if you have to go, it's okay. If you want to say some closing statements, or you can stick around if you want. Either way.
All right. I have another meeting at 2:30, so I'm going to leave. But I just want to say thanks to you guys because whatever I said at the ABAI meeting, I couldn't get my access to my video. Nobody has access to the video.
Oh, we got it. I forgot to send it to you, but I will. It's on
I
NeuroClastic
thank you guys that you guys were able to stream it. But I could have loved to get. Is Judge Rottenberg's presentation on the internet? Maybe it might be.
It's on NeuroClastic's Facebook page. If you look at their videos.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, why do I not have access to my own video?
Good
You know what I'm
question.
saying? You know where I'm coming from, right?
Right. Yeah.
But other
That's abusive.
presentations were there, but not that particular one. So it's
Wow.
okay. But I'm happy that you guys at least were able to make sure that I have access to it. And I appreciate that I was able to see what I said, because in the heat of the moment, some of the things, I was trying to put all the information together just for me to, although I was
They tried
seriously,
to stop you.
yeah, I was almost being muzzled. Things that I'm against, it almost happened to me, but it's okay. But I thank you guys, and I hope to join you guys again. We're all in this fight. I'm not in this fight, like I said, for clout. I'm not in it for clout. I don't want clout here in America. I want clout maybe back in Africa to help my people back. I want clout to go back and give. I decided specifically not even to take the bar exam in America, to just do different research work here, because I always want to be back in Africa. I don't want anything to hold me back. I want to always give back to my country and my continent. So I say thanks to you guys for giving me this opportunity. And I hope to join you guys in other engagements. And I'm happy that we are all in this fight. Some of us are not in this fight because we want clout. I'm not in this fight because I want money from Judge Rottenberg, or else I could have taken them to court. They know I have everything it takes, except if their lawyers are not smart enough to tell them that the way I left could have been a serious issue. But I'm not there yet. I have nothing against them. I know they have good side to them. I just want them to change some of the things that they are doing. If they could do that, allow people in their space, allow other people to speak out, listen to them, have engagements with them, discuss with them, hear from their own perspective, put them together and learn from that, the organization will be great. But aside that, I'm worried. Thank you guys very much. I hope to see you guys some other day.
We'll see you soon for sure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
Thank
Emmanuel.
you for your advocacy.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Wow. So this was a heavy thing for sure. I want to just update everyone a little bit about where we are without saying too much, because we can't for various reasons. But in the next 2 weeks, you will see what we've been doing. When you don't see NeuroClastic posting constantly and making, these elaborate slideshows like we tend to do, if you don't see us interacting a lot, if we're not responding to your messages and emails, that means that we are grinding hard at something. We're in our hyper-focused, full metal autistic mode. And some of us have been putting in about 20 hours a day. That's not an exaggeration on what we have in store. So we need you all to help us, because we're so overwhelmed with keeping the conversation going, right? Don't let this issue die out, because that keeps happening. We're closer right now than we've ever been to stopping the shock. There is a tool that everyone in the United States can use. I'll put the link up. It's www.stoptheshock.today. And anyone in the United States can use this to immediately contact your state's representatives, right? So it takes about 30 seconds. You basically just put your information in and hit submit. It's already got a script, or you can erase the script and type your own, which probably will have more impact if you type your own. You can also use that same tool to tweet or to call. We know autistic people and phones are not usually a thing, so do what you can. Autistic Self-Advocacy Network has a similar tool where they will use volunteers to call on your behalf. So if anybody has that link,
Yeah.
we can put that up.
I
So that's a
think
cool thing.
Yeah, if you're not autistic and you can make phone calls and you're looking for a way to be an ally, making some calls for us is a really good way. We're not phone people, but you might be.
Hey Jude, what are your thoughts after today? What's I can see your gears are turning.
God, just so much in my brain right now. But like a lot of the things, well, a few of the things that really like I've really been ruminating on is like how Emmanuel talked about that they do other services there, that he does think that they're doing good work, but how the shock therapy, the GED, overshadows all that. It's sort of like thinking about it like in the relationship where I'd say a lot of us probably have complicated and harmful relationships with like our families, with our parents. And so really like an experience of like talking to my parents and asking for acknowledgement of harm and accountability and having that coming back, and it's like, well, you don't remember all of the good things that we did for you, right? And it's like, no. Because that's what harm does. That's what trauma does. It overshadows everything. I can't remember the good times because of just how bad the bad times affected me, how it took my life. There was no life in the good times because the bad times were my life. And so like with the Judge Rotenberg Center, it's like if you continue to do this, that is all your legacy will ever be, is that harm that you caused, is torture. And it is torture because understanding is like, oh, like what you're claiming is like, oh, well, this got people to stop doing those things that you claim as harm. It's like, one, we need to analyze what you consider harm. And two, under duress, you can get me to do probably anything. Like a lot of people, like under duress, if you harm them, yes, they'll stop because they don't want to be harmed. But it doesn't mean what you did was actually good. That because you threatened to harm me or you did harm me, that I no longer did what you considered, that I no longer was making you uncomfortable. And that's proof of what you're doing is good work. No, that is proof. All that proves is what you're willing to do for money and to make us adhere to what you want us to do. But that is not proof of good. That is not proof of what you're doing to us is healing. It is not proof of anything that you're doing is actually progress. It is
What you can get people to do and to submit to is not proof of
yes, exactly.
anything but an abuse of power.
All you're showing is that like the power of what you can do to make us submit to you.
And I feel like I'm the opposite end of like where some people will submit to avoid harm. I can't hardly think of any times other than maybe just going catatonic and not being able to speak or move at all.
Mm-hmm.
But 99.9% of the time, I can't submit even if it's in my own best interest. I will rebel every time. And I will just continue to be hurt. You will punish me in perpetuity because I can't stand to think about being alive if someone is willing to take away all my rights and autonomy to speak up, which I guess that's both ways, but I don't have fight or flight. I only have fight. I don't have fun. I don't have freeze. Maybe every now and again freeze, but 99% of the time, all I have is fight.
And that's a big thing to also analyze in like abusive relationships, where people only want to dictate, like show the perfect quote unquote victim, that you sit there silently and you take it, and then then you did not deserve that harm. But if you fight back and you continue to endure it, then you are a problem. Then you were worth that harm. Then there was both sides sort of thing. But when you're fighting for your life, that's not fair. When you're fighting back to stop so that you're not enduring harm anymore.
And I think there's something here about PDA neurokin who are there, who cannot no matter how much harm is perpetrated towards them, not do the thing. Let's forget for a moment that they may be apraxic, they have no control over their body and no reliable communication to say that the thing that their body is doing is not their intent. But what about our PDAs who cannot submit because their neurology will just absolutely not allow them to, and so they will keep being tortured over and over and over.
And they also put you in the position, having been subjected to institutional abuse, and that's all I'm going to say about that, so please don't ask me about it, but I can say from personal experience that is deep and longitudinal. I have a lot of personal experience and data. If you have any sense of honor at all, and that's all you can do is just fight to keep your honor, you can't let people be harmed without throwing yourself under the bus constantly. Like, the only way to save your dignity, your honor, your self-respect, the only thing you have left is your fight. You're put to the choice of like watching people you love be tortured. And so your only two options are be the worst, so they focus all their attention on you and forget this minor annoyance that they were about to torture someone else for. So you have to escalate. You have to say, hey, look at me. And I feel a little bit like that's what we're doing now, right? But under the threat of harm. You know, we know a lawsuit is not just, litigating whether something you said was accurate or not. And it takes a few minutes of fact checking and then they dismiss. It tends to be brutal and last months, especially something this complicated, where they dissect every single thing that you say. They want your personal conversations. They really, it's brutal. It's a demonstration in public humiliation and power dynamics that we know we're at the bottom of that power dynamic. Except that we have you all too. You know, someone started JRC Sue Me Too as a hashtag. That was you all throwing yourself under the bus for us. Like, you weren't willing to just let... when I say us, hopefully you see us as you too, right? Because that's what we don't really have hierarchy here. We're not a typical corporate structure. We just want to build community and have a space where especially underrepresented voices in autistic advocacy can have a platform that respects them and what they have to say.
We only have a way to fight this because of community. We're nothing without a community. There's not very many of us in the grand scheme of things. We have the clout that we do because of the people that engage and contribute to the NeuroClastic on social media. So I guess that's what I think of when I think of us. I don't think of a leadership team or just the people who write articles. I think about everyone who comments underneath an article or a slideshow.
Yeah, big time. Jude, you're a chief decolonizing officer. Judge Rotenberg Center and ABAI basically look the same. Bunch of old white people, right? Same people, not all old, but mostly. Same people who've been, I like one of the board members founded ABAI, co-founded, with the current CEO who's been the CEO since 1993. That's a long time, almost 30 years, right? Does that make you feel old, everybody? That was almost 30 years ago. But yeah, so this is an old power structure. What would you say should be the first thing that people should do to decolonize this structure so that it can be more equitable?
Like the Judge Rotenberg Center
Yes, and ABAI.
and
Just that
ABA.
whole, just that whole network, because they're the same people, basically.
Pretty much analyzing why they're doing this in the first place, like how the mission is supposed to be to do no harm, and then analyze what is harm to you. What is harm, what is discomfort, and what is change? Because a lot of people, as autistic people, a lot of times that's what we have to do, is to have that introspection, or what they try to teach us, and this is like what makes us uncomfortable, how we process our emotions, how we get in touch with ourselves, so we learn how to navigate. So these structures need to understand that what they're doing is harm, and is not healing, and why they're trying to do this. And if they truly do mean to do no harm, that what that change means on every single level, and understanding that it's going to be hard, it's going to be disruptive, it's going to probably change so much about their lives, but that it's worth it. And if they really are who they say they are, that they're trying to do this to actually help people, then they need to actually analyze what is harm and what is just discomfort, what is change, and understanding that there is no one size fits all form of treatment and care. That in our humanity, all as different human beings, one program, one way of addressing things most likely is not actually going to give us proper care. So setting up these programs where where it's just a rigid structure of do or be harmed or die, it can no longer be that way. And if you want to hold on to that, then all you are holding on to is harm and your control and your power. And so much of this is set up on just as the repeating of power under capitalism, under racial capitalism, under imperialism, that was set up for power structure, not for help, not for equity, not for justice. That it was just set up so that control and power goes to you, and that is what they are continuing. And if you actually want to seek healing for the people that you say that you are treating and helping, then you need to give up that power. And you need to give that and to be more in community with us. And you need to listen to us as we tell you what hurts us and what we need. Because as he said, as Emmanuel said, we are the perfect advocates. We have that power. So as human beings, but as autistic people, as people with disabilities, we know what we need if you would only listen. Because you cannot build this new system without us. And if you try to, you will only mirror the very things that that harm that you continue to doing. So if you aim to do no harm, then you actually need to listen to us to deconstruct that, to actually seek healing. Because exactly, the immense need for control is a sick need. And honestly, it's the only thing that so many of us know. We're not allowed to question authority. We're not allowed to question ourselves. Even myself, somebody asking me a question, I'll get offended, and I'll get really bad RSD, and I'll have to stop. And so I'm responding instead of reacting, and understanding that they are not immune to that. So instead of getting defensive, instead of trying to force down our throats and our bodies and our minds and our entire beings that control, they need to give up that control and be in community and listen to us for what we want and what we need and what we deserve. Without that, there is nothing but hell.
And I feel like that everything that they have done, not just Judge Rotenberg Center, but also, I just want to acknowledge real fast, I've heard about 50% of people say Rottenberg, and about the other 50% say Rottenberg. I'm inclined to say Rottenberg just because that seems more fitting, but I'm not sure how it's said, so just throwing that out there. Jennifer, do you know, is it Rotten or Roten? We have Jennifer in the audience with us, who was subjected to the GED for years, who is now in a much better place. Oh, it's Roten, thank you. So is it a much better place and never needed to, it was just, they act like there's no option. No, that's not the true story. And we also know now, for a lot of people, that self-harm that just happens to kind of come on, that people used to call autistic regressions, that's usually or often autoimmune encephalitis or pandas, or some other condition. Jude and I both have idiopathic intracranial hypertension, which is just a word to say too much cerebral spinal fluid piles up around your brain. They used to call it pseudotumor, because you don't have a tumor, but it functions like having a brain tumor. It's horrible, and you can't think straight when you're like that. It's too much pressure around your brain. Well, we know a lot of autistic people have, and to say idiopathic means they don't know what the cause is. But now they're starting to determine that a lot of autistic people have autoimmune conditions that causes such extreme inflammation that it impacts around your brain. So when you start to see an autistic person engaging in self-harm and behaviors they can't seem to control, not even just an autistic person, any person, right? You see a totally different person suddenly. You need to look into medical things. We know that Judge Rotenberg Center says there's no discernible antecedent for some of these behaviors, right? Well, either you don't have the science to do what you're doing, if you can't find the antecedent that's causing these behaviors, and you need to say, this is beyond the bounds of my competence, as according to your ethics code. Because if you're not practicing ABA and you're leaning on ABA, not that we here support ABA, but using your science, if you can't use your science, you need to not practice as if you are ABA, using your institutional privilege without using your ethics code. You can't do that, right? I'm a little bit annoyed by the discussion about social validity, which is another violation of the ethics code. Social validity meaning if the public thinks something is brutal, then we can't do it. It's against their ethics. Okay, autistic people have been, and other disabled people have been fighting, and allies have been fighting against this for decades. It is only now, maybe because of the cease and desist, I think that did a lot to get this, the cease and desist letter that they sent us, and your help as a community did a lot to say, look at this abuse of power that you're going to tell the autistic community and one of their biggest and most active organizations. And, it's not like size matters in terms of organization, but just that we have a lot of contributors and we interact a lot with the autistic community all over the world, and we very deliberately interact with people who are not in that small, that inner circle of everybody knows these few advocates. We're not that. We're kind of a little bit of everybody, and that's on purpose. That's what we're wanting to do. We want to make sure that we don't just have the loudest or the majority voices, because that's what's causing the harm in things like ABA. Not that the science is amazing itself, but the big harm is where you've got these power people who are making all the decisions. Because looking at the chat, we see a ton of BCBAs, and all the time we see a ton of BCBAs who are horrified at what their science is doing and leaving their field and saying, hey, I did this because I love autistic people, or I am autistic people, and y'all said this was the gold standard, and I'm not seeing that. So it's not the BCBAs. It's not the direct care staff at Judge Rotenberg Center that I think they are abusing them too, right? Emmanuel is different, because he came in there with a ton of degrees, but a lot of people there didn't even have the equivalent of high school education. I was reading something last night about there was an incident at Judge Rotenberg Center where a prank caller called in to the staff and pretended to be an executive from JRC and had them go get people out of bed and shock them a ton of times. And the parent of the person who was shocked had commented to the news, it wasn't the employee's fault. They barely even spoke English. They couldn't understand. They were forced to do this. That's not okay. So,
Yeah, I was going to say something, which was that in institutions where so much abuse happens, at the bottom of the hierarchy, we have the residents, people who are cared for, in the care of JRC, and I still don't feel like those are the words that fit. And it's obvious that abuses are happening, that torture is happening, but when everything comes to light, when all of this is out in the open, my sense is that so many more abuses will be uncovered, and that it will go right down the hierarchies, and it won't just be residents we're talking about. I'm saying that as me, not as NeuroClastic. That's the pattern of institutional abuse. It's parallel processes all the way through.
I wanted to hit on definitely like looking into medical things, like understanding, like I'm myself, and I know a lot of us, I have OCD. And so a lot of the time looking into, I also have a background in transformative justice and harm reduction. And so with harm reduction, it's acknowledging that a lot of living under the system and living this reality, it's more of about navigating what's less harmful, but that we cannot remove harm altogether. So in a lot of, with my OCD, with my obsession and my compulsions, if I do not do them, I get so stressed that it causes my intracranial hypertension to get worse. And then I can't think. And then a lot of the behaviors that I cannot stop because the literal pressure in my brain. So literal going through my compulsions is literal harm reduction so that I'm not getting so sick that I can't function. But that's not the way that they would look at that at all. So if somehow they were able to, and there were times in my OCD when I was dealing with my eating disorder where I was able to stop myself, but the symptoms and the compulsions and the obsessive thoughts and the side effects of that from not being able to do my compulsions made my body break down. So in thinking that they've done a good thing or that they've helped heal someone when they've made it worse, when they've caused these stress-induced conditions to arrive in the first place, but then celebrating the fact that, oh yeah, they no longer have this eating disorder. They're no longer flapping their arms. They're no longer rocking back and forth, when a lot of these things we actually do to soothe us, or we actually do so that we're not so stressed out, to help calm us down, and then they take that away. They take that away from us. And then it's like, well, at least they're not doing this behavior, and that's what's important. But what they've done is still harm us even more in a way when we know the best way to navigate at our core, instead of navigating with us and seeking or saying, I don't know. And that's like what Terra was saying before, acknowledging your hubris and your pride and your need for control, and saying that I don't know, but let me still help you. Because there's so much power in saying, I don't know, but still saying that I will help you anyway, in the way that you need, and find what you need, rather than imposing on you the things that will hurt you, because that's what I know best. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know.
yeah, and they invalidate when we do know. They invalidate our voices and act like we don't have an evidence base. Well, no, we can't afford to manufacture an evidence base the way they can, right? When you only cite yourself, if you look at the papers from Judge Rotenberg Center, they cite themselves as their evidence base. They call that empirical support. If you look up what empirical support means, they're nowhere near meeting. They're not even meeting the standards for an evidence base, much less being empirically supported. And go Google some of the people that Judge Rotenberg Center quotes. When we say ABA is conversion therapy, and we get talked down to as if we're ridiculous and that's the old ABA, go look up some of the people that Judge Rotenberg Center cites, because their other research is things like shocking people to cure them of being trans. Because that's the kind of people they're citing, people who've done research on queer folk, and not just that, but other horrifying things. That's who you're citing as your evidence base. That you can't even acknowledge that you've caused harm when look at your evidence base. Look at the racial dynamics of the people who conducted that evidence. You know what? The thing I want to see is I want to see an autistic, black, or indigenous BCBA be elected president at ABAI. And I want to see the people who have been, and when Judge Rotenberg Center tries to say, well, we're new, we're different, we don't do those things that we used to do anymore. No, you are the same people who have defended in court against the things that we have all seen, the people who've died after being tortured for hours or restrained. You defended yourselves in court as if you didn't have a choice and you did nothing wrong. And then you send us a letter saying, we have never harmed a client. We can all look at Wikipedia. Let's just start there at your history. It's not hard to find. The world knows how disgusting they are. The United Nations, the FDA, everyone has tried to stop them. Look at the lawyer who sent us a cease and desist. Look at his record. Look at how many oversight agencies have tried to stop this. Emmanuel, who is with us today, is extremely brave, because we are in contact with a lot of people who
We lost your audio there, Terra. Can you hear Kate?
I can hear you. It's not you. It's definitely
Okay. Okay. While we wait for Terra,
how you doing, Jude? I'm just realizing, like, this is hard.
It is hard.
It should be hard. Like, people should be impacted by this. It is not okay to listen to this kind of stuff and not be not in touch with humanity if you're not impacted.
Like, I don't understand. Well, I do understand, but it's so messed up how you can defend this, how you can stand firm and take that money and go home to your families every night and pass on the harm down to immigrants to do this, to people that you do not pay a living wage, and pass that down and then stand confidently that you're doing right and that we're histrionic and we're overreacting.
Yeah.
With how many people that you've hurt, with how many people who are not here today to speak for themselves because you killed them, because they murdered them. And that is murder. And it's not right, and it's not okay, and it's like we shouldn't have to speak for this. We shouldn't have to defend ourselves from these people who claim to want to help us, when every day we have to analyze and figure out that actually what you said was good for me, that was actually you harming me. And the years of abuse and harm, what it takes to sit down and actually figure out that you were undergoing harm when you've been gaslit and manipulated for so long of your life into saying that it wasn't. So as you sit there and understand, not only was this harm, but I never deserved that harm, that I don't have to be here. And then how many people who never ever even got that opportunity to even make it to that point. One person is too much. And just for you to sit comfortably and to take that money to build this foundation and take that money and sit there and not actually have to physically do it. That blood is not on your physical hands, but you put it on other people so that you can just sleep soundly at night while the rest of us live in fear. We live in pain. We live under trauma, and the things that trauma does to the body is passed down in our blood. It's passed down to our children. You are not just hurting us, but you are hurting the children that we have. You are hurting our families. You are hurting our community that doesn't have time to regain consciousness or to feel safe. How can we feel safe when you feel so confident in harming us and calling it glory and calling it salvation and calling it healing? But it's not. And
it's clear that this isn't about therapeutic goals.
no,
It's very clear. And I don't know how much money it takes to clear a conscience like that. I don't know.
Yeah, there's nothing. We're having a huge storm here, so I'm sorry if I cut out. And we're about, this is, I think we've said most of everything.
Should we have some community regulation time?
Yeah, if you have a spoon for that, let's set that up. That we have, we want to acknowledge that everything that we've said here, and just constantly, what Jude was saying, we don't have time to heal. We don't, because we have to either stop trying, or we have to let our community or people who don't have access to fight. What it's always been about, like having that access to fight. We have to let them down or keep going no matter how much it's harming us. And we can tell you this is causing all of our community harm. That we have to keep litigating for our rights to not be tortured. We shouldn't have to do that. I mean, we have not healed from our ancestors going through this. Have your ancestors been in residential schools? Have your Native ancestors been in residential schools? Have you suffered institutional abuse? That is a lifetime to heal from, and having to convince people that it exists and that, they might have some parents who advocate constantly that this is a good thing. There are parent orgs that fashion their own paddles to beat children with and give them out for free, and their whole purpose is corporal punishment. They think that the reason that, quote, kids these days are not respectful and are badly behaved is that we're not beating them enough. So we already know that parents have bad ideas about what to do. And I'm not saying that every parent who allows this to happen to their child or their adult offspring is a terrible, abusive person. I believe that they haven't been given options that are better. But why is that when you stand there and you continue to soak up the resources and to advertise yourself as the only place that will take these? No, you're not the only solution. You're not the only place. And we all know better. We have to just start doing better. If you look at every human rights abuse that has gone on for a very long time in all of recorded history, you will find propagandists who were experts at slowly conditioning the public to think these things were okay. You know, how was slavery legal in a nation that was supposed to be the quote free country, the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? You know, how did we commit genocide against over 99% of natives? Propagandists, right? That's how that works. You convince the majority that what they're doing is necessary. It's in people's best interests. Nothing else works. We have no choice. And that's what Judge Rotenberg Center is. They're not even honest, and it's very easy to prove, but how do they keep getting away with it?
In transformative justice and harm reduction, a lot of the times when mediating with people and teaching them about bodily autonomy, teaching them about consent, a lot of the times they can say or something along the lines that they didn't know better, that they didn't know that there was another way. And a lot of times because we grow up in these systems, because we are in these systems, in these institutions, they make it seem like harm was the only path, and that making it that it's not harm in the first place, and that you deserved it because it was the only path. But it was never. Harm is never the only path. Like a lot of times when people say that it's like, oh, well, it had to be this way for me to learn that lesson. It's like, most of the times, if you were harmed and you learned a lesson, you learned that lesson in spite. If you were able to grow like a rose growing through the cracks in the concrete, that was not an environment to facilitate growth for that plant, but it grew through the cracks in spite of that. So harm was never the only way to help us. It is not the only way to endure, but that's the way that they make it seem, that this is the only path. And if this is the only path, then there's no reason for you to deter from it. And if you do deter from this path, it is you that is wrong. But in understanding that there's so much in history where we literally change our ways of health, and it's like, actually, this diagnosis doesn't fit under the DSM anymore. This is what we changed. So in that acknowledgement, why is it that the Judge Rotenberg Center, that you cannot acknowledge that that's possible? That you too are coming from a place of ignorance and harm that needs to be changed. And all of it is wrapped up in these systems, in white supremacy, in the genocide of that comes with colonialism, and all of that, and imperialism. But in that knowledge, that means that not only that you can change, but you must, because all you are inflicting are these same systems over and over and over, to where we will believe that we deserve it, because that's what they tell us, that we're deserving of harm. But one thing that I'm really trying to, even in my 30 years of life, that I'm just learning now, is understanding with, I do not have to stay in places where I'm being harmed. And though I can't control other people, I can control myself. And so if I'm enduring harm someplace, I'm not going to stay there for the sake of a relationship, even for the sake of community. I will not endure harm for that. And so in that, I cannot leave my people there. I cannot leave that for others, for them to continue to believe that they deserve that harm and that they have to stay there. But in that, we need that system to change. We need the Judge Rotenberg Center to understand that too, and to no longer inflict torture on people who don't deserve it, because in our humanity, in our existence, we don't deserve it. We deserve to be able to navigate our own path that is right for us, instead of this one strict path to harm, to torture, to murder, to so much conflict within our minds and our bodies that we break down and we're dying younger and younger. So even making it out of the Judge Rotenberg Center, and our quality of life is not that feels like worth living. And that's not fair for us. That's not fair for anyone. So understand, like, not only do we not deserve it, but we never did. There was not one point in time ever, even when we didn't know better, even when we believed the lies, you were never deserving of that harm at any point.
And I want to just validate what you just said. Like, we've been left with the choice of, like, we can exit to avoid harm, but at the expense of leaving our people. And that's not a choice. It's not. We can't know that this is happening and leave our people. So we don't have a choice. If you want to do ABA on us, do your science. Use your science. What is the antecedent for our, quote, histrionic behavior? Why are we having to do this every day? And then remove the reason that we're doing this. Stop torturing our people. And we don't want to do this. This is not attention maintained. This is not escape maintained. This is not reward maintained. There is nothing about this that rewards us. We just want you to quit. Stop doing this. That's all. And put safer people in power, because we can never trust the people who have defended this, ever. Stop asking us to. We never will. It's abuse to every single person who works in your field, who got into that field because they wanted to make a positive difference. Hey, guess what? I took an ABA job. I was only there for a month. I didn't know what it was. But I was thrilled because I was a teacher for 14 years and I thought, I've always wanted to go and spend time with the families of these parents who would say, you just understand my child. I don't get them, but you do. Or I don't know how you do it, but they respond to you. They don't respond to anybody else. I don't know. I always wanted to show them, right? To kind of be that interpreter. And I thought, this is my opportunity. Like, I can work with these parents. Didn't turn out that it was going to. I would have had to follow too formulaic of an approach. But, and as much as their community rightfully is protesting ABA, I want to say one thing. What I observed was not abuse. It wasn't very effective. But there were, and maybe what I saw was different from what a lot of people practice. But there were clients who maybe had a single parent or a single grandparent raising them, who were absolutely overwhelmed, who didn't have the physical strength to do anything if their child or grandchild eloped. So they were just stuck in the house all day, every day. And having a community-based service where a college student who just wants to help kids and loves kids comes and picks them up and takes them to meet with other autistic people at a playground that they love, at the splash pad, or at the library that's really accommodating to autistic people and doesn't mind their noises and different behavior, and they support that. So they, or, you know, to their McDonald's place that they love so much. It was wonderful in that way. right? To take the services from those people would dramatically harm them. So I don't mean to just come across as saying everything in ABA is harm. Because I've seen with my eyes, I've been present to see, they would do a few minutes of ABA and then they would do lots of play. And the few minutes they did of stack these blocks on top of each other, it was just like, okay, let's get this over with so you can go play. But the go and play part was the part that was amazing. The go and have fun with your friends part. And I didn't witness abuse. I didn't. I got to be honest. I saw ineffective things, especially where non-speakers were concerned. But I did see also the potential for life-saving services that you already have insurance approval for, so you can do better. And all of those people who try to help our community deserve better than to have this leadership that we are never going to trust. We need a changing of the guards. That's where I am with this. And I feel that a lot of people are too. Yeah. Okay, I'm done soapboxing. Kate, do you have anything?
I have nothing that Jude hasn't said in so much better than I ever could. I'm just going to concentrate on making a post so we can co-regulate together and leave it to people who have better words and experience than me. But thank you for being here.
Thank you, everybody. We love you all. Thank you for being in community with us.